I'm Lee Hawthorne, and welcome back to the channel. Really appreciate all the support that you've given so far. If you haven't already, go and check the Swine Tax interview. Got into some really great stuff there. And today we're going to be talking to SQUARMS. If you haven't already, by the way, subscribe to the channel, like this video. It really helps algorithms, all that sort of stuff. But yes, talking to SQUARMS today, and really insightful, I found. We're getting into kind of their creative process, how they met John Dole, their kind of feelings towards the idea of a scene, and the fact that there may not be such a thing as scenes anymore because they've managed to just go between the electronic scene, the hip hop scene, and the indie scene, and so they found that there's not really a thing, and I found that really interesting. We also talked about kind of the future of their music. They had a bet on what questions I was going to ask them. Didn't ask either of them, which I was pretty proud of. So yeah, without further, let's get into it. So I'm joined by SQUARMS, LYDN and WRST. How are you doing, lads?
Good man, good
Not
man.
bad.
Good to see you, Lee.
Yeah.
We definitely haven't been speaking for a couple of minutes. So you've just released Consequences, new single featuring John Dole. Before we get into kind of John Dole and the genius that he is, tell us about the song and what it's about and the influences and all that stuff.
It's a good question, Lee. It's a very good question.
I always find with our songs, when we write them, actually, because our writing process is like, it goes for a long time. Like sometimes we write a song, like in the case of Consequences, this actually sort of started in like February.
Yeah.
So it's like, the meaning of the song then was about that sort of specific incident that was going on around in February. And so we spoke to John about like what it kind of meant to him at the time. And I think it's actually sort of slightly different for both of us. Like we both sort of just like went our separate way on that song, but it's come together as like this whole thing. But
it changed in my mind at least 3 or 4 times.
Now where we are now, I feel like the song has got a completely different context to like where we wrote it. Like before even lockdown was like even a thing. I don't know. I just feel like people are feeling consequences now.
Yeah.
To like to put it really frankly, you know, it's like I think like a lot of people probably like hear it and probably thought that we wrote it in mind to like the current situation, but it wasn't really a thing at the time when we wrote it.
Well, actually, it's interesting. The day we actually wrote it was the last time that we saw John Dole before lockdown 1.
He was in our house.
Yeah.
How weird is that? John was in our house. That's fucking real.
We were sitting around in the sitting room with a couple of guitars and bass. John had his stuff out, and he somehow accumulated 73 tracks for this song, which is another nightmare I could explain in a different conversation. But one of the most pertinent things about that night that I remember is it's the night that my mom texted me and saying she works in the NHS, and she said like, oh, there's people in like hazmat training, and like this is like real, this is serious. No one at this time, no one was taking it seriously, like no one. And that was the first moment I got an inclination of this is a serious thing, and then that kind of set a tone in the night as well. Or a subtone anyway. So everything transpired.
I remember you getting that text. That was a freaky text. Like everyone in the house was freaked out by that text, man. That was weird. Yeah.
It's interesting that you mentioned tone there, because something that I noticed in the song is the kind of the differences between kind of John Dole and WRST, in that the vocals for you, WRST, are like very kind of dark and kind of dystopian, and then John Dole comes in and it's like all kind of light, and it could also almost like, if you weren't listening too much to the words, could like a pop song or something. And like, was that kind of on purpose? Did you just like try to get that juxtaposition in there, or?
No, like I sort of thinking about again like the lyrical process again today, just before this, but the music all came first, and we sort of can you remember where Consequences, like that actual like concept, came from? Did we actually start with that or not? This is it. Like I don't even really remember where it sort of started, but
I guess that's a reflection of kind of the creative process in general of us as
Like it could have literally been something like as simple as like we were just riffing around and playing our things, and then someone just said a sentence, and like the word consequences just like came up. So we saved the project file as like title it consequences, because then like you hear like me and John didn't write any lyrics that night, and then like we kind of went our separate ways and sort of kept tinkering with it. So then like you hear like John's first line is like consequences, you know, of your friendship, you know, and it's like, it's about consequences. And like my first line is about consequences. And I think we just sort of started there and just like riffed, and we both went our different directions with it. Mm-hmm. And actually like the structure of the song is completely different as well then from that original sort of take that we did there. And like John's sort of like bits felt more kind of like chorusy, like hooky, and mine were like more versy and stuff. So the way that it's sort of structured sort of like presented itself immediately when we had all the parts lined up. Because again, like this was all like just all over the place at the start.
I think you only had like the backing kind of choral spooky, and then John Dole had like a few lines that he was just.
We did start writing that night. I remember because John, I've got a picture in my head now of John holding a mic that night in the front room. So yeah, he must have done some. There must have been some, like at least a little bit done that night. See, we don't like. It's a bit of a mystery how these things happen because it happens over such a long time. Like it all gets a little bit blurry, like the order and things happening, and then like who did what is.
I sent that. The project was sent between. Like I mixed it down a little bit, sent it to John Dole, he mixed a little bit, sent it back, and this is over the course of a few months. And then I mixed it again, went to his house, sat down with it, mixed it a bit more, went back, sent him it over to do some of his vocals, sent it back, and then I sent it to Loft, and he sent it back and basically told me like it was nowhere near the level of needing to be sent off to Loft. It was like 70 tracks or some shit, and I was like, it's completely right. The unwieldiness of this project is was unwieldy. So this whole transpired over about the space of 6 months from February to now.
It's got to be longer than
like
that,
just tinkering, or maybe longer than that, but like just bubbling away. But but at the same time, like there's a lot of other kind of projects that like take place in that time. It's not like we're just obviously sitting down on the same project for 6 months, but whatever becomes more relevant in the kind of our process at the time or what we're doing at the time, or just some things might just pop into the consciousness and take over completely, and something takes second place or third place, and things are just not right in the mix, and you just need to keep going. But it's always hard to say when a project's done, but when it is, you get it's there. You go, oh, that's the sound, that's the one.
I think you have to, or you go mad.
How normal is that for you? Because I expect that of John Dole as somebody that we know. I've just seen your piece in Knock this month where you just kind of say that he's got like however many tracks on a hard drive that most people will probably never hear, because he's like known for being a bit of a perfectionist and not really putting out enough releases, even though we know that that's good enough, John. However, get it out. But so is that something that you normally do as well? Does it usually take that long for you to work on a project as well, or was that just kind of John's perfectionist coming in and kind of influencing the way he's worked?
I think it's I'd say it's hard to say. Sometimes yes and sometimes no. It really just depends on the project. Sometimes we could sit down on a session, record with someone, or sit down in a session and just come up with a hook, or sit down in a session, bring an element to the table and like, oh, we're excited about this, and turn it around in a week. I mean, the mix obviously always takes a bit longer, but in this previous year, we had songs written and done in a month, but then on the opposite end of the scale, obviously it's 8 months or whatever it can be. It really just depends on the project.
We've always got loads of things going on. There's always things going on. Like we've got like, I don't know, 4 things on the go at the moment now that we're sort of like playing with, and it could all be potentially like next single. And again, like some of these are like, consequence style things that have been on the go for like 6 months, and then other things are just like, oh, we did that one night, the other week, and it's like
Polka Dot's a good example.
Wow.
So Polka Dot was a song that you've heard live, and everyone who's seen us
anyone
live
who's seen us live has heard
heard
the
that
song.
song. And some live versions of it on YouTube. Yeah, that was written the same time as TV, maybe even before.
Like years ago now, we got this residency at the Sage in Gateshead where we got to go and like work on, you know, how to like make SQUARMS like a live performance thing. Because at the moment, like back then, it was like all very much like a studio sort of, you know, that sort of project, right? So we needed to like figure out some way how to like make it performable, and then we did like our first performance, and there was like a whole collection of songs in that set then. And Polka Dots is one of those songs, and like none of the other songs are still in the set. Like, I don't know, like maybe TV was in there, you know, but like there was like, I don't know, 8 or 10 songs in there that have all just sort of phased out over time. And Polka Dots from day one is still there. We still haven't got it right. It's been years, man. We're getting there. We're getting there. Like maybe when it gets out, it's going to be sick, man. But it's just not ready yet. We haven't figured it out.
But I don't feel any rush for that either. There's no rush for that. Like, yeah, it's easy to fall into the trap of like making releases for the sake of making releases or whatever. It's you know, when it's ready and it feels like it's ready, it's not just like the same thing as John Dole, just being a perfectionist and sitting on it because it's not perfect and you're not happy with it. It's also where it fits into the kind of present moment in a cultural way as well. And like, oh, if it just naturally feels like, oh yes, this is where it fits into the story, or this is where it fits in now. I'd say we kind of manage that on the go, just, you know, on the fly, just feeling it, I guess.
And also I think most independent artists also feel like this, but I just feel like we're constantly like, because of the way like we're artists, we're not like PR agents, like, so we're constantly at heads with the attention economy, like trying to keep up and be like the hot thing, and it's like it's tiring to just be constantly promoting, and like it's not what either of us really want to do. We just want to like make the music. So it's like
you'd hear most artists say that.
Exactly. This is what I'm saying. I think most people like in our position probably feel like that.
It's interesting as well though, because I have actually like got it down in my notes that you have released, like, I would say a lot of music this year. So like you've done well, like,
at the start of the year we released a lot. And
then but even like recently, you know, Views from a Terraced House, and like it was only a few weeks, well, was it a couple months ago now? But like even so, it's like
funny right now, doesn't it?
September. I think that's like, and it lasted because, you know, such a great song as well. And also, I guess you're speaking of your kind of releasing in the moment kind of songs and whatnot. I think everybody was looking out Views from a Terraced House in September, weren't they? So, you know, how did you meet John Dole in the first place? Because I know he's a kind of more recently come into more of the kind of the hip hop scene and stuff, but I imagine you knew John before that because of the Canada Records connection. Would that be?
Interesting story. So we met Tom from Canada Records at a Richter Discs night, which was a kind of like house and disco night that Jonah, our friend that's in Real Sesh, who we lived with like 4 years ago, was doing with Canada. So I remember meeting Tom in like the smoking area and being like, oh, you got record label, like, you know, let's talk. I'm interested, like what are you putting out and stuff. And then he introduced us to like Badger, and then that's when he first mentioned John Dole's name. And one of the first things he said was, oh yeah, you should definitely like work with John Dole. Like, I didn't have a clue who John Dole was at the time. And he was like, you would love it and stuff like that. And then, I think the first time we met him was it was at Kaleidoscope. We done a night.
It was the launch. She left the TV with Canada Records.
So that was the first time we'd seen him live.
Shout out Tom, man.
Yeah, shout out Tom.
Yeah.
And I guess everything just transpired from there.
Yeah, no, he like didn't Tom like reach out and say like, you want to like do this night with, who else was on that gig?
It's Badger, wasn't it?
Was it?
I don't know.
I can't remember, man. Our memory's so badly. What's going on
It's
here?
hard. Well, yeah.
Mine's usually good. Like I could probably tell you most hip hop lineups of the last 10 years or so. But like,
I think you were probably there, Lee.
You were there.
You should be able to tell us.
I definitely wasn't, but I should have been.
That's
but,
what we meant, man.
How is the kind of electronic scene kind of evolved over the years? Because I think it's like really understated and underrated. I think you've got kind of the likes of Yous and Milos Me, Badger, Tunnel Club, loads of these like kind of great artists, but maybe don't get the respect that they deserve individually and as a kind of collective as well, where like, you know, you hear about the indie scenes, the dance scene is like international, but like the actual electronic scene seems to be very kind of under the radar a bit. Do you think that's fair to say?
Yes, like
It's nitty gritty. I feel
it
like
is. It is. When I think about like we've played with Tunnel Club before, and like I've seen them once or twice, and it's always in like a pub or a bar or something. I just think those guys deserve like
massive,
a good
yeah.
stadium gig, really.
Awesome.
It just feels like they're being so undersold here, and we could say the same for like so many of those acts. And it's do you know what it is? It's like, where would you put them, Lee? You know, it's like there's no venues, man. There's no venues. They're all going. They're all disappearing. Like the really cool places are they're few and far between. There's still a few.
You've got like world headquarters, obviously the absolute staple of Newcastle. You know,
yeah, Cobalt. I think there's a few places. There's a few like really amazing places, man. Like Star and Shadow Cinema as well.
Yeah.
Well, they've done some really awesome like electronic nights, and you know, there's places, but it's like if you don't know about these places, man, then you're never going to see these people, and then you know they just exist on like YouTube.
It is niche. It is niche.
So niche.
But
so niche.
But then when you're there, it's like, why?
Isn't like some of the best stuff I've ever seen has been in like these just like totally understated environments, and it's yeah, people are missing out, man. Like there should be way better like access to this stuff.
It's kind of the beauty and the tragedy of Newcastle is that it's small enough to have community and kind of, you know, that kind of vibe, but it's not big enough to have kind of a weight of a Manchester or Bristol. It doesn't have the same pull because there's just not enough people or not enough kind of, you know.
I don't know about people, man. The people are here. Yeah, I think it's venues, particularly like medium capacity, small to medium capacity venues. You know, like artists like us, we couldn't sell out. You know, the Academy. That would be a ridiculous gig for us to put on right now. So like, where do we play? You know, we have to be so like guerrilla warfare about this sometimes. Like we're doing all these live streams this year, and this is something that, you know, before like the whole quarantine situation that we've always been banging on about, because it's like I just feel like as artists you've got to like take control of as much of like the dissemination of all your, you know, your business as you possibly can, and you know, like providing your own stage is like, that would be like that would be such a cool thing to be able to do as an artist. And I think the live streaming thing is close. It's close to being like a cool stage to be putting up. And
it's not the answer though.
It's not the answer, and we're still playing with it. Like it's one of these things that we're just going to keep playing with until we get it right. But like the ability to like, I don't know. I'm rambling here. This is how I think, but you know, like to be able to put on your own show as an artist, I think would be like amazing. And we're like priced out of doing that here.
At the moment as well, especially.
Yeah. Although I have really liked seeing what you have done with the live streams. I think if anybody in the Northeast has like really kind of made it their own thing, and kind of, I think I was watching back the Dream Punk Dream. What was that one called? Was that right? With kind of John Dole, Cush Noodle, and there was a few others on there as well. And I remember the buzz after he's kind of done that, and it being like, oh wow, it's not just kind of mobile phone acoustic guitarists doing this. It's like there's like a real kind of art to it, and there's like an aesthetic there, and it's like art. Like how important was that for you to kind of start doing that, and have you just found like a benefit from it, like a follow through?
Yeah, like I mean, like we were just dying to do that at the time when we did it, and I think like it all lined up right. And I look back and I actually think that is possibly like not just like our set, but I think that's the coolest thing we've ever done.
It was, yeah. I think all the stars.
People still talk about that, man. Now
stars aligned for that. Like our mate Dan came up from Bristol to do a set for that, and that kind of just, you know, made it so pertinent as well. Yeah.
Dan, by the way, is one of these people, like he flew us down to Bristol to play, like when we like when no one knew our name, he flew us down this, like Dan is one of these people that like has just always seen the merit of our music in a way that sometimes I don't even see it myself. So like again, big ups to Dan.
Yeah, big ups to Dan. He's a true legend.
Yeah,
yeah.
How important has that been for you to kind of have like support networks as like musicians around you? Because I think in the last couple of years, obviously we've seen you kind of work with Phil Flight and kind of the John Dole connection being there as well, and Kush Noodle and a few others from that scene. But also kind of more recently, it seems like the kind of the indie crowd has kind of welcomed you as well, with kind of Motel Carnation being vocal fans of his. The gig that you did the other week at Independent when Post Room mid-set wanted just to support their next headliner and stuff like that. How has that been for you?
Like we stumbled into the hip hop scene, man. We're misfits. Like we never really intended to get there, and it's just like we're still just staggering around, you know. We'll stagger over into the indie scene for a minute, and you know, do some Between Dreams stuff like we do with Mr. Comfortable and that stuff we've done with like Side of and whatever, you know. And then we'll go and make like a wow techno like dubstep influence thing. It's like it's sort of liberating to be able to just hang out with all these people that are making cool music. I'm not really worried about, you know, you're an indie boy, so I couldn't be talking with you.
There's no drawn lines in the sand. I guess that's the beauty of it, like being able to, you know, hang out with Motel Carnation and them also get what you're doing, and you get them and what they're doing, and then the next night you go to a you know, Gabba rave, and then you're just hanging out,
and they're there too, man. They're there too.
And it's like, this thing, you get it, because it transcends just like scenes at this point. I mean, that's dead and gone, dead and buried. I don't know. Well,
some people are still doing that, but for us, it is.
I mean, what I mean by that is the physicality of scenes is kind of dead and buried. There's no like late 70s punk scene that exists. There's no, you know, real, you know, physicality of scenes, I think, has died slightly, if not indefinitely, and it's much more spaced out. It's much more it's digital. It's enjoyed digitally now. And because of that, music taste is so much more eclectic, and most people, you know, have more eclectic tastes now than if you go back in time and, you know, you go up to someone and ask them what music then, they're just like, oh, I just love David Bowie. But then you're like, oh, but do you like so and so? And they'll be like, no, I just like David Bowie. You know, that can be applied obviously to anyone.
You still meet those people now.
Yeah,
it's well weird when you meet those people now, and they're like, I just love, you know,
of course,
George Michael. You know, it doesn't matter who it is. There's still people that are like sort of trapped in, I don't know, like what, you know, I listen to rock music. And now it's like, you know, that used to be like the norm, and now when I meet those people, it's almost sort of like, why are you still doing that? Because there's so much sort of available now. And it's so easy to find, but people still do listen to music like that. But
it's a good thing. It's also a curse. Yeah, it's a bit of both.
I don't know. If it's good or bad.
Me neither.
Me neither. Yeah. Cool.
Do you think you have kind of see it that way, maybe a bit more because you're now kind of like firmly established within just kind of wider Northeast music? Do you think that it's like because you're known more? Do you think he's kind of realised that the scenes maybe aren't so much there, but for the smaller artists, they're still maybe a thing? Do you think that, or has it something you've always thought even when you were kind of starting out?
I would say it's something I've always thought. Well, not always thought, obviously, but something that I've came to realise, and not just recently. Something that has been present in my mind, even probably pre-SQUARMS, even if I didn't fully realise that idea. But I think it's more of a general reflection of the kind of music industry in now 2020, but also probably the last 10 years especially. I think it's a natural kind of digressing in UK music, or just I want to speak just about UK music because it's what I'm familiar with. But obviously, little bands, which I would class myself in as being in localized scenes, is, you know, it's definitely, they exist. I'm not saying they don't exist, but I'm just saying I feel like culturally there's less significance in localized scenes as opposed to how people enjoy music these days, which is through digital dissemination and kind of algorithmic marketing and, you know, social media and you know, all this kind of shit.
Yeah, local music doesn't get the spotlight that it deserves in any context.
Yeah.
No.
In any context, there's no context where it really gets what it deserves. And you know, this is something that may be like, you know, Spotify, the gears are turning. There's all these like incentives now that I'm hearing that you can like buy into as smaller artists. So that like, you know, like when you're watching a playlist or whatever, and it like finishes, and then you go into like related music and stuff. Like you can now, as like local artists and stuff, there's schemes that I don't know if this is currently available or if it's sort of coming in the future, but like you can buy into these schemes and essentially you find your way to like new listeners like this. But this is something that like, if you just pump like £1 million into your release, that comes as standard, and I can't do that.
Yeah, it's a big part of that. You can throw a lot of money at a wall, but yeah, it's like it brings into question kind of artistic integrity. I mean, this is a whole different conversation altogether, I suppose, but like, yeah, how much money do you want to throw at a wall, and how far can you push out your music? You could, yeah.
We need Cambridge Analytica.
Yeah,
that's what we need.
Yeah.
We need specifically like targeted financial marketing advice from Cambridge Analytica.
Yeah.
Shout out to Cambridge Analytica.
But yeah.
No, but I think you do like bring up a good point there, in that there is a definite paywall when it comes to music. There's a few that might kind of slip through. Like I think like Martha Hill is doing great, but that's again through funding that she's received, kind of thing. But she's maybe not backed, kind of thing, yet. But I do think for most artists that do kind of break through, they are paying thousands for like radio plugins and stuff like that, and it's like
I realized this the other day, Lee. Like if just buying a decent guitar these days prices out, I think, you know, what percentage you want to call it, you know, 50% of the country, you know, like people don't have just thousands of pounds just lying around to you know, and just to essentially see no return. Like we've put so much money into this band, and it's like the payouts that we now receive are like it doesn't even come close to the money that we've put into it.
But yeah, I'd say we put money into ourselves more. Yeah.
I'm not saying it's like gone to waste, that, you know, which is maybe like what that sort of infers. I'm just saying, like, you know, absolutely first-hand experience. Like, not everyone can do this.
Yeah, absolutely.
In the way that we're trying to do this here.
Which yeah, it puts a horrible paywall on artists, especially disadvantaged communities. You know, to really make any kind of leeway into you know, into anything. Like, you could get the sickest band ever, and you know, and like you hit that kind of wall. It's like, you know, where do you go from here? You know,
yeah.
What do you do? Like, I don't know. Yeah, I mean, yeah. It's a funny one. It is a funny one.
Let's took a bit of a dark, sad turn. I'm really bummed out now.
We'll turn it around. There's always a happy ending.
Well, I'm hoping so, because I wanted to ask you about kind of the plans going forward and the music that you might be releasing. Kind of say, is there any more coming in 2020? I'm assuming not, but
we're going to do a Christmas song.
I would love that so much. I love Christmas songs genuinely, but like Faithful Johannes doing Christmas songs and stuff like that proper makes me really happy.
we might do something, but yeah, I don't know. We were having bets on what questions you were going to ask us today, Lee, and we had a bet on you were going to ask us when we were going to do an album.
Yeah.
Well, it's not even in the air.
I just lost a tenner. We don't have plans. We don't have plans. There's a couple of things we've got in mind next year. There's a couple of things and one thing or two things that I've already planted, which is cool. I'm really excited about.
But generally, it's just like, especially now, you just live your life and just, you know, try and fucking chill out. It's just, you know, like, yeah, I mean, that's it. Just live your life. And yeah, I don't want to just say like, wouldn't want to say we're going to do an album, whatever, because it really just depends where we are when we, you know, whenever we decide that we perhaps want to take on a project like an album, we would feel it. It would be the right moment around us in our lives. Yeah, I guess that's it.
Yeah, we work in singles, so like, and I think there's a few reasons, but like one of the reasons is probably because it's the most enjoyable way for us to work, rather than just getting like stuck into something like an album where we've like got to just exist in this world of, you know, the same 8 songs for however long, you know, that we just prefer to work in this sort of like smaller little chunk. One thing we have discussed, and I really do want to do this, I do want to do an EP. I said I do want to do an EP at some point. I just want to do like a little more than one song that's sort of like on the same sort of like wavelength, you know, because we work in these singles, like everything is so sporadically different. I think it would be sort of fun to do something where it's like, okay, let's explore one thing, but like a little bit longer than, you know, 3 minutes or whatever.
Yeah. So in my head, I definitely do want a SQUARMS album in like a couple of years' time. But I think like the dream for next year would be like 3 or 4 singles and an EP. That would make me very happy next year.
Yeah. That's yeah.
Well, it is the season of giving. You know, Father Christmas might deliver this yearly, so we'll see.
I hope so. I did want to end on an interesting fact, I guess, about kind of the history of EU musics, and the fact that you told us at the gig at Independent the other week that you used to be like a singer-songwriter, which I don't think anybody would ever kind of imagine. You don't listen to SQUARMS music and like hear like Ed Sheeran.
Good. yeah. Like,
how did that happen? What was like the genesis that turned you from singer-songwriter to?
I'll give you the whole story. I grew up. I'll go like right into it. I'll go. My year 1 teacher used to play guitar, and I was looking for a male role model in my life. That was the hole that was missing, and I think that is, you know, that year 1 teacher, Mr. Jude, he was. What a perfect name,
Mr. Jude.
He's the reason I'm here now.
Big respect.
Yeah, so I just started playing guitar instantly, as soon as I could, and that sort of like developed into like playing in bands and stuff. You know, these bands break up, but you know, I still have my guitar, so I was just like writing songs. Came to uni up here, caught the hip hop bug, started like making beats and stuff, and that's you know, in this interim, like I've, you know, made like acoustic music, a load of hardcore punk, and loads of stuff in between. So it's like quite a lot of things happened in that space. But then like I met Gary when I came here, and I'm still here, man. I'm still doing it.
It's just reminded me
happens.
Of like, on that note, like people probably don't realize as well that we're in a psychedelic doom jazz band and also a kind of death metal band.
People never know about this band.
What's the death metal band? I feel like I've heard of the doom jazz stuff, but what's the death metal band?
K-Horde.
K-Horde, yeah.
I don't think I've heard of that.
Yeah, like we've got this big thing for like improvised music. This is like a bit of a tangent that we go on sometimes. So, you know, like if you ever come and see Lemon Knowledge or K-Horde, these are like our 2 sort of instrumental outfits that we're talking about. Like it's all improvised, like made up on the spot, with like different instruments and stuff going on, and it's all like K-Horde in particular is just mental, man. It's just insanely crazy. Yeah. So it's like completely different from SQUARMS, but we just keep it completely separate, really.
It's a nice to be able to just explore kind of different processes.
Yeah, like having like alter egos as an artist is something, again, it's just like liberating, because people have expectations about, you know, what the next SQUARMS release is going to be. And if it was like some doom jazz stuff, I think people would be like, what? Yeah. So like to have these outlets in other places is just like nice, you know.
Yeah.
See, I almost disagree, and I wonder, does any of the stuff that you do bleed into Squarms? Because I think
Absolutely, man.
Yeah.
Absolutely, it does. It totally does. But yeah, if I don't know, Lee, have a listen to like Lemon Knowledge and K-Word, and you let me know. But it's very different. It's very different. I think people would be like, I don't know. You're making me doubt myself. Maybe you should just release a Lemon Knowledge song as Squarms. No, we're not going to do that. But there's definitely like cross currents between them. Like we were speaking to the guys from Afterlight Management the other day, and he was saying that Consequences is super jazzy. And it's interesting to talk to other people about his songs because they always say things that like you're not expecting. But I was like, I guess it kind of is a bit jazzy. I didn't really notice that at the time, but there's definitely like, especially when I think about PB Hansen and his contributions with the sax and all that. It is jazzy. It's in there. It's in there. So yeah.
For me, I think with Squarms, it is like such a thing where it's like it does feel focused and it does feel like an overarching sound, but it also feels like everything's a bit different, and there's also like loads of experimentation probably gone into it. So like I think all these different influences from these different projects that you do, like I don't think anybody would be too surprised actually. Maybe it's at face, and then once you think about it, actually makes sense.
Yeah. I'd say it as a kind of just like a creative space where you can just fuck around with stuff that you can just bring anything to the table and just see what happens, see what sticks at the wall. And I guess that's the fun of it, especially because it's a kind of improvised jam band. You can just, completely just go into a zone, go into a complete different zone and come up with things and hear things that you just didn't expect. And I guess, it's a funny one. It's
Performing in that band is the most fun.
Yeah, it's fun.
The most fun.
Yeah. Where can people find you online and find the various projects that you do online as well?
www.squarms.co.uk.
You even anything /Squarms. You can even go facebook.com/Squarms.
Yeah.
That's quite a good place.
SQUARMS.
Instagram's a good place. Instagram's good.
Yeah.
We like pretty pictures.
Yeah. And what about for the other projects? Do you want to plug them just so people can check
I would say if you're really interested, if you actually got this point in the video and you're listening still and you're interested, just Google us, Squarms. And
Lemon Knowledge.
Lemon Knowledge as well. But what I'm saying is, or Real Sesh, because you'll be able to find, there's so much shit on there so much stuff that you won't believe.
It's a rabbit hole, man. It goes
deep.
There's so much
deep
stuff.
rabbit hole. So do your own exploring if you
have a deep dive.